alone if you feel like happiness is the truth. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you know what happiness is to you. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like that's what you want to do. Here come bad news, talking this and that.
Okay, welcome everyone. We're so excited to see you guys here. Please let us know where you are coming from. Drop your name in the chat, your city. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here. We're so excited.
Here's why. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you know.
Go ahead and get started in 1 minute.
Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like that's what you want to do. Bring me down. Can't nothing bring me down. Your love is too high. Bring me down. Can't nothing bring me down. I said, bring me down. Can't nothing bring me down. Your love is too high. Bring me down. Can't nothing bring me down. I said, because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you know what happiness is to you. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like that's what you want to do.
On the ones and twos. Matt, you can go ahead and turn us down. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for being here for another Read to Lead Live. I am truly so happy. I'm so excited about our guest today. I'm your host, Kumara from Read to Lead Live. Thank you. So our guest today is a principal dancer. It's been a tradition in my family to watch the Nutcracker, Alvin Ailey, the Dance Theater of Harlem. So I am especially excited about our guest today. I remember being a little kid on stage, like thinking, man, I wish I could do that. And Misty, you've actually done that. You've been on those stages. Misty Copeland is the first African-American performer to be appointed as a principal dancer for the American Ballet Theatre in its over 75-year history. She began her ballet studies at the late age of 13, living in a shabby motel room, struggling with her 5 siblings for a place to sleep on the floor. She's the author of the New York Times bestselling memoir, Life in Motion, and also has a picture book titled Firebird. Missy's passion is giving back. That's one of the reasons why she's here today. She has worked with many charitable organizations and is dedicated to giving her time and her work to mentor young girls and boys. Misty, thank you so much for giving us this time today.
Oh my goodness, I'm so excited.
Awesome. So I love to keep the joy going. So I like to hear a fun fact about yourself that no one, like in other interviews, you may not even mention it. We would love to hear something fun about you.
There are a lot of things. I think that typically when people think of a dancer, especially a ballerina, they think graceful, coordinated. I definitely fall a lot when I'm not on stage. But one fun fact I would say, I love sunflower seeds, and probably since I was like 5 years old, and to this day, like I keep a drawer like in the nightstand full of sunflower seeds that I could just pull and eat in bed.
Oh my God, I love that. All right, so weird question. What do you actually do with the shells?
I don't just spit them out in the bed. I keep a little Ziploc baggie that I put the shells in.
Man, I love that. It's so funny because when you were talking about the sunflower seeds, it like reminds me when I was a kid and I had so many friends in middle school and high school who had like literally had a sunflower seed addiction. So thank you for that memory. Like, I feel like I could totally relate to you. It's such a great memory and such a great thing to know about you. So we know that you started dancing, when you were 13, but I want to talk about when you were 10 years old. What did you want to do or be when you were 10, the age of most of our youth out there?
Yeah, it was really difficult for me at that age to dream. There was not a lot of opportunity around me, and the way that I kind of looked at daily life was in survival mode. The things that did motivate me or inspire me in a way that made me happy was watching the floor exercises in gymnastics, like especially at the Olympics, and listening to music, in particular Mariah Carey. So I think at that age, it was like I was drawn to art in different forms, but I don't know. It was going to be something creative, but I cannot say that that at 10 years old I was saying out loud, this is what I want to be. And I think that it's important to have people around you who are going to support your dreams and give you opportunities to dream and make you believing in yourself. And so unfortunately for me, like that didn't happen until I was 13 years old, but I definitely ballerina was not on the list of things I wanted to be.
Let's talk about that moment when you were 13 and you did have that support. First of all, who was it? Was it one person? Was it like a whole group of people? And like that moment where it just clicked, man, I know this is what I want to do. Like everything that I had been interested in, this is the moment. I know what this moment is. Can you talk to us through it? Like put us there with you.
Yeah. Something that's looking back, and I mentioned, being drawn to gymnastics and the floor exercises in particular, because, it's more movement than the other aspects of gymnastics. And I think that I had never seen classical dance and I'd never heard classical music, so I had no idea in my mind what that looked like. But when I started creating and choreographing on myself, what I envisioned was this very lyrical movement. And I think that, yeah, floor exercises was the closest thing I'd ever seen to classical ballet. And so I was definitely drawn to it, which is so fascinating. But it was more than one person. It was definitely a small community of people that were behind my my progression to becoming a professional. First was my the drill team teacher at my middle school, which I decided I would audition for the dance team, which it was really insane for my whole family because I was so introverted and I did not want to be the center of attention. I didn't want to, get up and speak in front of people. So when I decided to audition for captain of the drill team, they were just like, "Whoa, what is going on here?" Um, but it was something that it was the first time that I had confidence in myself to do something, and I always felt that dance was a way of me expressing myself. So uh, that first coach, Elizabeth Cantine, she's the one who introduced me to my first ballet teacher at a Boys and Girls Club where I was already a member. I took my first ballet class on a basketball court, and it was that teacher, Cynthia Bradley, that from the moment she laid her hands on me in that ballet class, she called me a prodigy, and she knew immediately that this was something I could do as a career. So it wasn't like I had the pleasure of just kind of taking ballet recreationally and falling in love with it. It was like from the moment I started, my teacher offered for me to come and live with her and train full time, with the goal of becoming a professional. So from the time I started dancing, the goal was to dance for American Ballet Theatre.
Oh wow. Like and you made that happen. So like I have to like just stop like the runner show I have going on and be like, so when you actually get into the American Ballet Theater, like what were you thinking? And then when you became principal dancer, like just
Yeah.
bring us to those moments because that you literally manifested. I talk about speaking truth to power all the time. It's been a constant refrain, and you literally have done that.
It was something that it was again the first time that I knew, like in my bones, like this is what I want to do. And again, I hadn't experienced that at all up until that point as a child. um but I just was it was the first time also that I had structure in my life, and I had like consistency. And I grew up one of six children, just moving, constantly moving. Like we never had like a home. We were houseless for a lot of my childhood. So we were either sleeping in motels or staying with friends, which these are people I didn't know, sleeping on couches. And so the stability that I lacked in my life, I gained in ballet. There was like a sense of community and stability and consistency that I was craving. But I just kind of put my head down and I fell in love with it and worked and worked and worked. But it only took 4 years of training, which is unheard of. I wouldn't recommend it to anyone to attempt to only train for 4 years and go professional. But that's what I did. I moved to New York City right after high school. Um, and then, the purpose of my journey changed. Where it was before, when I was growing up, it was like, oh, you're this prodigy, and this is your goal. But once I got to ABT, it was like, okay, I'm not. First of all, I'm no longer considered a prodigy. Like once you kind of pass that threshold, and you're an adult, things shift and change, and it's really difficult for a lot of prodigies to kind of take that leap into professional life. But it was kind of when I backed up and was like, okay, I'm in a company of 80 plus dancers and I'm the only Black woman. My purpose completely shifted, and I then was the only Black woman at ABT for the first 11 years of my career. And I just felt like what I was doing had a much bigger purpose than just focusing on myself as an artist. And that's when I started to, the conversations I was having about the lack of diversity and racism in ballet became really just a big part of my everyday existence. So to be able to get to that place where I became the first Black principal ballerina in ABT's 80-year history now, it was like, okay, this is the first step. But now that I have an even bigger platform, I've got to keep these conversations going.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And what I'm hearing is a theme of sort of stepping out of your comfort zone and also stepping into your truth, right? And that is amazing. So we have a question from someone out in the audience, from Catherine. So how do you stay positive and motivated during those hard times, right? I mean, this instability that you talked about in your childhood could, and certainly was, I'm sure, overwhelming. And I'm sure there are youth out there that are going through the same thing that you went through. How do we stay positive and motivated during these times?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, I think, important to find something that you connect with and that you feel you can express yourself through. But I think more importantly, as is being aware and being open to accepting support and accepting love and accepting guidance. I think that once you have acknowledged that we all need it, it doesn't make you weak. It doesn't mean you aren't a leader, but I think that once you can acknowledge that at some point as a human being, like we need support and we can't do it all on our own. And that to me, that understanding and realization, like if you don't have access to people around you, I think just being aware of it kind of opens you up for people to want to help. And also to take that leap in making the steps to reach out to people maybe that inspire you, whether it's an author or a teacher, to really go out there and make those connections, because that's like the backbone of me is the incredible support system that I have. That's what's encouraged me to keep going on difficult days and what's kept me inspired and believing in myself.
That's awesome. So Nazaya Payton also has a question. I'm bringing this up because I'm thinking, man, there's so much division and hate in the world, right? And she's asking, what advice do you have? Well, she's saying for dancers, but I say for people in general who are facing insecurities or hate for just who they are and who and how they walk through the world. What advice do you have for folks like that?
I think that it's valuable to kind of, it sounds bizarre, but like remove yourself from the equation. And that when you think of that, it's the people who are having these issues or have the hate pointed towards you, that it's important to recognize that it's not about you and it's not about you as an individual. that it's really about what that person's going through. And I know that's really difficult to actually do. Like I've been in that place where I've gotten, this an incredible amount of hate, whether it's on social media, different blogs and reviews that I look at. But I think that if I look at it really subjectively, like, kind of just step back and and think about the things that I can do to educate people, thinking about the things that I can do to be representation for other people. I think it makes it a little bit easier to kind of move forward and be present in what I'm doing.
That's so true. So as I mentioned earlier, you're a best-selling author. So not only are you principal dancer at American Ballet Theatre, but a best-selling author. Was it difficult to write and share your story?
Um, what's it's really fascinating. I feel like when it comes to channeling art, like the things that I've gone through, if it's being expressed through art, it makes it so much easier for me to do. um, and I don't think that when I first joined ABT that there's any way I was strong enough or um, emotionally ready to share my story the way I did at 29 years old when I wrote my memoir, Life in Motion. I still had a lot of growing to do in terms of believing in myself and forgiving my past and accepting that just because I went through it, it doesn't mean that it's my fault, and it also doesn't mean that the circumstances I grew up in have to define me. And I think it took me some time to get to that place, but writing has also been a very cathartic thing, a way of expressing myself that I've done since I was very young, even before dance. I was searching for a way to communicate and to express myself without speaking. So I was going to find any way any way to do that possible. So dancing and writing were great great resources. But I've kept journals for most of my young, teenage years and through adulthood. And when I wrote the memoir, it was really helpful to be able to go back to all of these journals and like feel like I was back in that moment and to be able to be open and vulnerable and honest. And I think that I realized that I'm not alone. There are so many children that experience similar backgrounds or that can learn from knowing that these things happen, and not just kind of living in a bubble. But it was a little bit scary when I think more so when I would hear from people after they read it and I'm like, oh, I did say that. You like forget that people are reading it in the world. But I think it was really helpful in kind of advancing those conversations, especially about the lack of diversity in ballet, to be able to share very intimate stories of things that I dealt with as a Black woman in ballet.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's like so amazing. And what's interesting, right, is that you wrote your memoir at 29, and most people are like, have you lived a life by 29?
I asked when I was offered, the opportunity. I was like, no, 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 I'm not. I haven't lived enough.
But what I love about that is that at 13, you were attacked prodigy. Now you had to think about your career and stepping into this whole new world, but in a world that's kind of like a leadership kind of role at such a young age. Our youth out there are young. Can you talk to them about the ways that they can be leaders and authors of their own stories?
Mm, I love that. Um, I think that we all have it in us to be leaders, and I think that when I think about being a leader, like it's not necessarily, having to be the loudest person in the room and the one standing up and screaming your opinion. And there are so many different ways to be a leader. And I think that, when I think about, big organizations or foundations, like, that leadership role exists in like every role that creates this bigger picture. I think it's being fearless. Leadership is. I think that it's having belief in yourself, but also in others, and the possibilities of what can be, like creating a better world, a better outcome, having faith in being consistent in the way you communicate with people, that they can learn and be better, and that it's it's not about like how many people's opinions you change, but even if it's just one person, that's leadership. um and I think that, yeah, it's about believing in the things that, are important to you, and not being afraid, not thinking about what other people think about what you feel. Not to try and be anyone else, be yourself, believe in the things that, are important to you. Because we need those creative thinkers in our youth to be able to make the world a better place and move us forward.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about being your authentic self, finding your authentic voice, and going on that journey. Before we went live, we were talking about another book that you have coming up soon, and I would love to hear a little bit more about that journey, what that book's about, and when can we go out and buy it?
Yes. Oh my God, it's really exciting. So, um, yeah, I have a couple of books. I have my first children's book, Firebird, that I with Christopher Myers, an incredible writer and illustrator. And then I have Ballerina Body, which is really positive about body image and just lifestyle choices. But I also am working, well, and I have Bunheads that came out during the pandemic, which was really exciting, I think, for young people who can't get to ballet classes live or dance, and to be able to present a beautifully illustrated by Setor Fiagibe um, uh, picture book that really shows the like diversity and young boys dancing and girls of all different backgrounds, and to be able to celebrate ballet in that way. But my most recent book that I'm working on now is called Black Ballerinas. And I've struggled since I started dance with being able to open up a book and learn about my history, my community as a Black dancer in the ballet, in the ballet, realm. And the fact is, you can't open up a hit ballet book and see a Black face. Like our stories aren't documented and aren't told. And I feel like, it's been what I feel is my responsibility to speak about as many Black dancers throughout history that I can uncover. I mean, it takes a lot of digging and research to find these people. But to be able to, I took a hand, I can't cover them all, but I took a handful, of really important, I think, dancers throughout history. And there's beautiful illustrations, and a little write-up about them and their background and their impact on history and how they've influenced me in my life as a dancer. So I'm really excited. Hopefully in the fall of this year that will be available.
I am 100% looking forward to that, because the lack of representation and diversity of Black women, Black people in all mediums, but especially, like you said, ballet. I remember in high school, I had a friend who was half Russian, half Jamaican, awesome ballet dancer,
Oh,
was going to, really her dream was to be on stage, but they told her she was too tall. She was 5'10", and, she had curves, as Black women often do. And they said that, she was too tall, and didn't matter how much weight she lost. And so she had to switch her dream around. So how impactful this will be for all of the up and coming ballet dancers of color. And I love the idea of also the male dancers, because there's such a stigma for being a ballet
yes.
dancer as a man. So that is beautiful. So thank you for bringing that out into the world. It reminds us in here at Classroom Inc. And I'm going to totally botch this, and Christina, who's our executive director, is like, but basically, we have this idea and a saying about why the work we do is so important. Is because we want a mirror in a window, right? A mirror to see who it is, but you see yourself reflected in places you have not been reflected. And then, of course, the window to be able to step through and come into your truth and come into your authenticity. And it sounds like that's the journey of your life. So, Misty, thank you so much. I'm going to hop to some more student questions. We have quite a few students who are actually dancers, ballet dancers, aspiring dancers, and they want to know what's it like to live in New York City, one, which I think is something that a lot of folks aspire to. B, what's it like to perform at the Met and some of the big stages?
It's amazing. I mean, I'm about to celebrate my 20th anniversary with American Ballet Theatre, which is crazy. And, and New York just never gets old. Like to be able to be in a place where you have so much at your fingertips and, you really have no excuse um, to not be able to challenge yourself to grow as an artist because there's so much around you to be inspired by and influenced by. And I think that as a ballet dancer, that it's even more important because of the way that the tradition and the history and the culture. I think it's important for us to stay open-minded and well-rounded so that we don't kind of just get caught in this like classical bubble of what we're shown as what beauty is. And what, when you think about ballet and they say it's the just like the purest art form, and it's like, well, what does pure mean? Is that just associated with white? And is that why that beauty standard is only, a certain way? So I think that the advantages of living in New York City are huge, and I try and take advantage of that as much as possible as a classical dancer. Um, and dancing in these incredible on these incredible stages. Oh my gosh. I think that was the first moment, the first time I stepped onto the Metropolitan Opera House stage was the first moment that it just hit me just like, oh my gosh, how did I get here? Like, how did I go 4 years ago to never having heard classical music to standing on this stage? And I even, think about like Marian Anderson, like the first Black opera singer to have performed at the Met. Like, there's so much incredible history, and to be a part of that was really overwhelming. But the stage in general, like, I'm so fortunate to have danced on literally the most incredible theaters and stages throughout the world. And Madison Square Garden, I mean, with Prince, that was like another New York highlight of my like life and career that, is so different from the theaters I'm used to, but another unbelievable performing experience.
Oh my God, Prince is the ultimate performer. I had the chance to see him at Essence before he passed away, at such a young age. But I was so lucky to have met him. I'm sure he was a consummate artist. Like joining that artistry must have been just beautiful, right? When you come together with someone who's just so passionate about art as you obviously are, it just must have been chemistry. I'm jealous of everyone who saw it.
Yeah, it was an unbelievable experience, and he was really like the first person that really challenged. Like a lot of these kids probably don't know who Prince is. I'm like, Google him. No.
Oh, Prince, you will fall in love. I guarantee it. We guarantee it. Don't we, Misty?
But he really was an artist that took a chance, but like gave me an opportunity that he believed in what I could do and be and who I was at that moment. But he was really the first person that brought me into the spotlight, brought me into a bigger, broader world and audience to be able to showcase classical dance, which is why I wanted to work with him. I there's so many people throughout, because that was a long time ago now that we worked. That was like 11 years ago when I first started working with Prince. And to have people to this day that I see after performances backstage at the Metropolitan Opera House say, oh, I learned about what classical ballet really was and about, becoming a fan of the ballet through seeing your performance with Prince. And it was like, that's the reason that I wanted to do this. And I think that's the power of like collaborating and exposing people to an art form they might not be interested in.
Yeah. So we always ask all of our guests this next question. What would you tell your 10-year-old self?
Hmm. I would say to be patient and to know that your passion and your hard work and your belief in wanting a better life for yourself and for your family is enough, to love yourself and to allow other people to love you.
Misty, I love that because just having so many conversations, especially as Black women, we want to take everything on and we're big and we're strong and we can do this. And the ability to allow people to love us, to love on us, to to help us realize what our worth is. It's such a powerful statement that you just made, in a great way for us to start wrapping up Read to Lead Live. Misty, thank you so much. We have had thousands of people join, hundreds of student questions. Everyone totally enjoyed you and was so excited. And so I am just so thankful for everyone who came on board. You guys out there in the audience, if you're at school, if you're at home, virtual learning, et cetera, we want to hear from you. There's going to be a survey in the chat. Who would you like to see next? We've got Misty. Who's next on board? Can we get a group of folks together? It'd be so awesome. So please just let us know. Misty, again, thank you. You obviously totally walk what you believe in. You are giving back, and we are so thankful for having you here. Our next Read to Lead Live will be in March, everyone. Please take care. Adios.
Thank you.